Welcome to Revolution.org, Episode 1, Opening Statements and Precursory Transmissions. Revolution.org is a podcast dedicated to begin social transformation through revolutionary activity. For we, as the fellow galleries of individuals of our society, await the beneficial visions against the war of mass compliance and social conformity. A podcast which aims to begin, instruct, and advance the necessity of concepts to systemic change to a world half asleep in lies and half awake seeking the fragments of eternal truth. And to those who not know their own nature, their own inherent power, I query and ask you to try and see beyond the illusions manifested in realms by state and corporate expositions. And to those who oppress through these two vehicle systems must be shown the future light. The continuing games which are advanced where people starve or are bombed to death when the manufacture of glamours, capital, power and fame are televised. To begin one's inner introspection into one's true nature. To ignore the vast bombardment of social institutional propaganda provided by the state, corporation and other failed social institutions. And to spark the birth of new lines of questions about our world, the ones that we are not supposed to ask. Here to begin one line of preliminary questioning. What is the difference between what you desire in life and what you need? Do your desires hold resonance towards the light within? Are you seeking to end yourself as the pawn of the players of the games played for power and control? Or are you already following the procession towards the end of all unnatural and artificial things? For between what you desire and what you need leads you to the state of your destiny. And as your individual destiny flourishes, it leads us to a collective awakening. To taste and be drunk from the oasis of revolutionary forms, ideas, concepts, which altogether hold the keys for unlocking our future state. A state of paradise from which we will lay the groundwork for universal human rights. One document that will come to form and infer the universality of humanity's dreams. And with an aim to see this document ratified by nation after nation, do you see yourself beyond the temporal times of incessant and configurational disharmonies? The fabrics of incarnated cloth at this time of liberation belies a harvesting toward greater things that is being conducted behind the scenes. To perhaps awaken and witness what remains as transitory prisons in society. Perhaps we can contribute to a society with a revolutionary heart, to a world without flaw and chaos. The common pollutions of today replicate and breed. Seething in taste, the weapons presented throughout the system, the commonalities of exploitation and control, are found in late capitalism in the modern epoch. For I indeed ask you to envision society in its postmodern guise and form. The constructions to lord of power, mass capital, fame, and the egoic nature of worlds. This is a podcast to begin discussions, the dialogue between you, society, and I. To design and advance discussions, to question what should lead us to the door of true grassroots systemic change. For there exist and always have existed many paths and ways to seek internal and external revolutionary change. Firstly, to observe the world with a critical mind. Secondly, to observe the inner worlds as the individual bodies speak to each other. When the observer becomes the observed and these two passages meet, characters developed towards seeking reality and light. Indeed, to seek and master oneself, to claim one's inner power against all opposing forces. The collective array of institutions where the teeming masses follows the lies like rats in a maze is one of providence and metaphysical act of self-revolution. To as one see beyond the collective imagined perspectives, the half-truths and the strangled narratives. To seek and unravel the highest of essences of ideas that are held behind the highest of veils is another act of self-revolution against the system. A step towards collective revolutionary motions that we must take to secure our world from chaos and evil. And it is only through systemic change and revolution that the current caretakers of our status quo will be removed and no longer allowed to oppress the masses. And when the truest of realities emerges, perhaps the doctrines of the status quo will waver for us to consider that we are more than just transitory beings. And that perhaps we are more than just conducive points of labor in a machine, transitory in realms of the corporations or the government's thrall, and that towards the idea of revolution, that we are regardless of background, race, color, creed, gender, social position, or monetary capital, and that we the people must find means to end the class warfare, to end the oppression by the state, to collectively hold the corporation's path of legal destruction of our planet, to find means of continuing progress and production of the earth without creating decay. Challenge the politicians and the leaders of businesses who are our so-called social representatives, who tell us that mass accumulation of capital is the only future, that we should seek to end the rising mass social inequality, to provide universal equity through preliminary means of UBI, or perhaps even imagine a future where capital no longer dictates the system's values and motions. And as these are just preliminary topics of this podcast, and to this, these are just precursory steps of the first podcast, a series of discussions which will hopefully lead to epiphanies and the search of realities and questioning the nature of the system. And that is by discussion and action that we should indeed seek the light of joining hands to begin the passage of transcendence and a brighter future for the masses of the world. And as for once, for so long ago, it was intoned that the revolution succeeded by capturing the means of production, held the path to seizure of social power. And as for the previous characterization for the plane of social struggle for revolution towards utopia, those considered of the working class and other sectors of society must find common grounds to meet and further the discussion. For the race to enact systemic change and revolution has indeed shifted to a different battlefield, to which we must also attain to remove the lies found radiant in the values of the status quo itself, and aggregate our power to initiate the procession in towards the realization of a world of unity, equality, and correct usage of power. The topic of the next episode is outlined as such: the system, its prevailing social expressions, its many faces, values, and its current postmodern social construct, and its many tendrils representing the false nature of reality found present in today's day and age. To discern within the realms of experiential subjectivity and objectivity in mass conscious interactions in the world we call life, as it is the current revision of the architecture of the system which holds us before mass internal and external revolution, the revolution that we seek. And if indeed the revolution is to come to full term, we must remove the system's tendrils from our world. That is it for episode 1 of revolution.org. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for episode 2, The System and Civilization.